In 1991, Somalia, once a stable albeit authoritarian regime under President Siad Barre, disintegrated into lawlessness following Barre's ousting. With no central government, the country fractured into clan-based factions, each led by powerful warlords who fought bitterly for control over Mogadishu and the rest of southern Somalia. As the power struggle intensified, the civilian population suffered the most. Famine, violence, and disease became widespread. It's estimated that by late 1992, over 300,000 Somalis had died from starvation. This humanitarian catastrophe caught international attention. In December 1992, U.S. President George H.W. Bush launched Operation Restore Hope, a mission under the UN umbrella aimed at securing humanitarian aid delivery. Initially, it was welcomed. However, as American troops shifted from feeding the hungry to pursuing warlords, resistance grew. Mohamed Farrah Aidid, leader of the powerful Haber Gidr clan and a former general, emerged as the most dominant and defiant warlord. He viewed foreign forces as occupiers interfering with Somali sovereignty. Tensions escalated in June 1993 when Aidid's militia ambushed and killed 24 Pakistani UN peacekeepers, a turning point that led the United States to directly target him. The UN Security Council passed Resolution 837, authorizing all necessary measures to apprehend those responsible. U.S. troops, particularly elite special forces, were now on a manhunt. Aidid, meanwhile, vanished into Mogadishu's dense neighborhoods, shielded by loyal clansmen. Each raid against him further inflamed local hostility. In August 1993, the U.S. deployed Task Force Ranger to Mogadishu. This elite unit consisted of 1. Delta Force operators, the U.S. Army's top-tier counter-terror unit. 2. 75th Ranger Regiment troops. 3. Night Stalkers from the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, flying MH-60 Black Hawks and MH-6 Little Birds. 4. Support from Navy SEALs, Air Force combat controllers, and intelligence operatives. Commanded by Major General William F. Garrison, the force had a singular mission: capture Aidid or his top commanders. Operation Gothic Serpent commenced with months of intelligence gathering and surveillance. On October 3, 1993, actionable intel indicated that 2 of Aidid's senior lieutenants were meeting in a building near the Bakara market, a notoriously hostile area. At 3:32 p.m., the operation launched. Black Hawks and Little Birds descended on the target building. Rangers fast roped down to establish a perimeter, while Delta Force operators stormed the building and successfully captured Aidid's aides. However, from the moment the helicopters appeared, Mogadishu erupted. Crowds gathered quickly. Civilians picked up weapons. Aidid's militia mobilized in minutes, moving through alleyways and rooftops with RPGs, machine guns, and small arms. The American vehicles on the ground were suddenly in a kill zone. At 4:20 p.m., a Black Hawk helicopter, Super 6-1, piloted by Chief Warrant Officer Cliff Walcott, was hit by an RPG and crashed several blocks from the target site. Soldiers rushed to secure the crash site. Soon after, another Black Hawk, Super 6-4, piloted by Chief Warrant Officer Michael Durant, was shot down. His crash site, farther away, became isolated and surrounded. Now, instead of extracting, Task Force Ranger had a new mission: rescue the downed crews. The battle had just escalated. Mogadishu's urban landscape, narrow streets, high walls, and countless alleyways, gave the Somali militia the upper hand. Thousands of armed men poured into the area. Civilians joined in, seeing the Americans as enemies. The original ground convoy, led by Humvees and trucks, got lost in the maze of streets. Maps were unreliable. GPS was primitive. Radio communication was chaotic. The convoy took wrong turns and was ambushed multiple times. Soldiers were wounded or killed. Vehicles were damaged, tires shredded, windshields shot out. Meanwhile, Rangers and Delta operators fought block by block to hold the crash sites. Some used rooftops for cover, snipers held off waves of attackers, and medics tended to bleeding soldiers as they fought to stay alive. At the second crash site, Durant survived but was trapped in the wreckage. Two Delta Force operators, Master Sergeant Gary Gordon and Sergeant First Class Randy Sugart, volunteered to protect him. Dropped in by helicopter, the two men fought valiantly against a mob of Somali fighters. They were eventually overrun. Both were killed, and Durant was captured. Their bravery, choosing to sacrifice themselves to protect a fellow soldier, earned them posthumous medals of honor, the first since Vietnam. As night descended, the trapped soldiers dug in. They hadn't eaten, drank little water, and had been under fire for hours. They rationed ammunition, treated their wounded, and waited for a relief force that had yet to arrive. The sound of gunfire echoed through the city. The Americans used night vision gear to keep fighting, but the militia knew the terrain better. Finally, just before dawn, a UN relief convoy composed of U.S. 10th Mountain Division soldiers, Pakistani tanks, and Malaysian armored personnel carriers broke through. They reached the trapped units, secured the crash sites, retrieved bodies, and began evacuation. Not all vehicles could carry the soldiers to safety. The remaining Rangers and Delta troops had to run on foot to the Pakistani stadium, a UN base. This dangerous retreat, under fire, became known as the Mogadishu Mile. The surviving troops, exhausted, bleeding, and emotionally shattered, finally made it out. The mission was over. It had lasted over 17 hours. American casualties, 18 killed, 73 wounded. Somali casualties, estimates range from 315 to over 1,000. One Black Hawk pilot, Michael Durant, was held hostage for 11 days before release. Images of the aftermath, particularly footage of a dead U.S. soldier dragged through the streets, horrified the American public. Domestic support for the mission collapsed. In the following months, the U.S. withdrew its forces from Somalia. By March 1994, all U.S. troops were gone. The incident deeply affected American foreign policy, instilling a reluctance for future interventions unless strategic interests were directly at stake. President Clinton later admitted the operation should have been better planned and questioned whether the U.S. should have pursued Aidid so aggressively. The Battle of Mogadishu left a deep and lasting imprint, not only on those who fought it, but on the course of U.S. foreign policy and the memory of military conflict in the late 20th century. In the years that followed, the events of October 1993 were revisited time and again, not just as a story of tragedy and bravery but as a case study in the risks of intervention and the limits of military power in politically unstable environments. For the American public, the images that emerged from the battle, including the shocking footage of a dead U.S. soldier dragged through the streets by an angry crowd, triggered national outrage and sorrow. Many questioned why American troops had been placed in such a volatile situation without clearer objectives or stronger international coordination. The public reaction was swift and unforgiving. Within months, the United States began pulling its forces out of Somalia. By March 1994, all American troops had left, and the broader United Nations mission soon unraveled. The political fallout discouraged U.S. policymakers from committing troops to similar conflicts for years to come. This hesitance, sometimes referred to as the Somalia syndrome, would later influence decisions about intervening in crises such as the Rwandan genocide in 1994. Despite the painful outcome, the bravery shown by American forces in Mogadishu became part of military legend. The actions of Master Sergeant Gary Gordon and Sergeant First Class Randy Sugart, who gave their lives protecting a downed pilot, resonated as powerful symbols of valor and sacrifice. Both were posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, the first such awards given since the Vietnam War. Their legacy, and that of all who fought that day, became a vital part of the ethos within U.S. Special Operations Forces. In the years that followed, the story was brought into the public consciousness through journalism and cinema. Mark Bowden's meticulously researched book Black Hawk Down, published in 1999, captured the events in gripping detail. It was later adapted into a 2001 film directed by Ridley Scott. Though dramatized, the movie introduced a new generation to the chaos, fear, and heroism of the battle. Veterans of the conflict, both American and Somali, were often consulted in these retellings, some seeking to ensure accuracy, others hoping their sacrifices would not be forgotten. Meanwhile, Somalia remained in turmoil long after the last shots were fired. Mohamed Farrah Aidid, the man at the center of the conflict, died in 1996 from wounds sustained during a clash with rival militias. Ironically, his son, Hussein Mohamed Farrah, would later become a U.S. citizen and serve as a U.S. Marine, a complex twist in a saga that had already blurred the lines between friend and foe, tragedy and resilience. For those who lived through the Battle of Mogadishu, the scars remain. Some soldiers never fully returned from that battlefield, haunted by the memories of fallen comrades and the intensity of urban warfare. And yet, among them is also a sense of pride, in their courage, in their brotherhood, and in the fact that against overwhelming odds, many made it out alive. The story of Mogadishu is not just about war, it's about the human cost of leadership decisions, the unpredictability of battle, and the resilience of those caught in the fire. It is a reminder of how one day, one city, and one decision can echo for decades across nations and lives.